Funding now on Indiegogo, it's Shadowbinders, our second chance offer to get 2 hardcovers of our classic webcomic delivered to your door. Steampunk, fantasy, and romantic comedy from Clownfish Comics. Go to Indiegogo, check out the link in the description below. Now on with the video. Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon, and we're going to talk about that Crunchyroll sale to Sony that Warner Media sold off Crunchyroll for a little over $1 billion a few months ago, and we reported on that last year actually that was going to happen. And now the website that tipped everyone off to the fact that they were going to sell Crunchyroll, that Warner was going to sell Crunchyroll, saying that there's an antitrust probe. Yeah, this might not happen. It might not happen. We can't have one company owning all of anime. I guess they're going to look into it, and we're going to see more of this as these streaming services kind of gobble each other up. I think eventually, in the end, we're only going to have maybe 3 or 4 big streaming services like we have had 3 or 4 big network television stations. But I think that this is really interesting because we are going to see some losers in the streaming wars, and they are going to probably have their content gobbled up by other companies. Will the government allow it? Who the hell knows? Who knows? But this shows how important anime is, because a couple of years ago, I don't think anybody would have given a shit if a couple of weeb streaming services merged, but now it's a big deal. So we're going to talk about that. Before we get into it, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. We're over 183,000 subs. Thank you so much for the support. So this is coming from The Information. The Information was the site that leaked that Sony was in talks to buy Crunchyroll off of Warner Media before the pandemic. And we reported on that, and people said we were lying. They said The Information was lying. That's impossible. There's no way that Warner Media would sell the super profitable Crunchyroll. There's no way that they would do it. And they did. And the reason they did is because right now, everything is about HBO Max. They probably didn't want any extra streaming services they had to contend with. And look, I think the overhead at Crunchyroll is pretty high. I mean, have you seen their offices? That's kind of crazy, and it's just, anime is on the rise. It definitely is becoming more popular now, I think, than it has been in recent years, but that still doesn't mean that it warrants, I think in Warner's eyes, especially with the massive amount of debt they have, it warrants a whole nother streaming service. Now, I am a little surprised. I thought that they might roll Crunchyroll into HBO Max, and just that Crunchyroll would be the anime tab on HBO Max, and they do have a Crunchyroll section on HBO Max, but they sold it to Sony because Sony wants to rule the world with anime. They've made no secret of that. They want to rule anime, and they were willing to pay over $1 billion for Crunchyroll. But now, what's going to happen is Netflix might actually be boosted by this, according to The Information. You go out and look for anything on Crunchyroll today, and it's all about this antitrust situation here. So this all dropped last night or yesterday. You might think the antitrust lawyers at the Justice Department would be crazy busy with the lawsuit they have going against Google, as well as an investigation underway in Apple, as well as deals outside of tech. And yet we reported today the Department of Justice has decided to undertake a close review of it. Wait for it. Sony's $1.2 billion purchase from AT&T of Crunchyroll, a streaming service focused on Japanese animation or anime with 4 million subscribers. Crunchyroll is about 6% the size of Netflix in the US. Yeah, they're kind of surprised too. They're like, of all the things you're going to waste your time on, that they bought Crunchyroll off of AT&T and Warner Media. That's what you're going to waste your time on. Sony is already a competitor in the anime market through ownership of Funimation. Apparently, the Department of Justice is worried that anime producers will be at risk of being unfairly squeezed out by Sony. if the Japanese company owned both Crunchyroll and Funimation, yet Netflix is in the same anime market as is Amazon Prime. Neither are shrinking violates. This seems to be a wrong-headed investigation. There are other streaming services popping up, anime streaming services. We talk about Retro Crush. The Japanese are making deals now. Toei is making deals with Tubi. The Japanese have their own YouTube channel right now that they're bringing stuff over direct from Japan. So I don't think it's gonna really be an issue, because a lot of people are like, yeah, we don't want to play ball with Sony, and they're gonna go start something else. And honestly, it's getting to the point now where I think a lot of Japanese studios are like, we don't want to run stuff through, a U.S. company. Now, obviously, if Sony owns Crunchyroll and Funimation, it is a Japanese-owned company, but they're also a competitor. Would you that'd be like everybody selling their comic books or going through Marvel Comics. DC going through Marvel Comics to distribute their comic books, or independents going through Marvel Comics when they also make their own comics. It's kind of a conflict of interest, I think, on the studio side of it. I wouldn't feel comfortable. I'd be like, I'm not going to go to my competitor, who's way bigger than I am, and they control most of the market, and also sell my stuff through them. That doesn't make any sense. More to the point, if the Department of Justice decided to try and block the deal, it would only impact Sony, which owns no other streaming services in the US, a tiny player in streaming, while benefiting companies like Netflix and Amazon. Sony owned Crackle. I believe they owned all of it, and then they sold the majority off to Chicken Soup for the Soul. And now Crackle's producing its own content too. This whole thing doesn't make sense. I was like, why did you sell Crackle, Sony? Like, you could have kept Crackle for live action stuff, and they didn't seem to care. They were very focused on anime, and it might bite them in the ass. That seems to run counter to the idea of the government using antitrust laws to promote competition. Wouldn't be the first time laws aimed at regulating industries have had the unintended effect of strengthening big players at the expense of smaller upstarts. Europe's GDPR privacy law being Exhibit A. So this is going to be really interesting, because they basically are like, well, we could tie this up, or we could block this, and what's going to happen is Netflix is just going to keep producing anime. Amazon's going to keep producing anime. Tubi now is getting into it. We told you what's going on with Tubi, that Toei's cutting deals with Tubi, and Tubi was bought by Rupert Murdoch's company. It was bought by Fox for like $500 million, and nobody saw Tubi coming, and they're producing their own content now. So Fox basically took Disney's money, because Disney was trying to get the Fox assets for Disney Plus. They took Disney's money, bought Tubi for a song, and now they're putting anime and other live action content on Tubi, and they might be the dark horse in all this. So they have another article out here on it. Like, it's the biggest US streaming services, Crunchyroll and Sony's Funimation, offer subscribers on-demand anime movies and shows that the services largely license from studios such as Toei Animation, which makes Dragon Ball and Sailor Moon. As part of its review, Justice Department attorneys are trying to determine whether the deal would give those studios fewer options to distribute those shows in the US. No, I think they're going to go do their own thing. Like I said, a lot of them aren't going to be comfortable going through Sony. AT&T's Warner Media and Sony have told the Justice Department that Crunchyroll and Sony's budding anime empire are just two of many options anime creators have to distribute their shows outside Japan. The options include Amazon, Netflix, and Hulu, as well as HiDive. The companies are urging the Justice Department to not consider anime as a market distinct from the broader range of animation geared toward adults, which would expand the field to include shows such as The Simpsons. A Department of Justice spokesperson did not respond to a request for comment. All of the companies are jockeying for a piece of the rapidly growing anime audience, a global market valued at around $24 billion in 2019. It actually went up. It actually went up last year. The 8th consecutive year of record highs, according to a November 2020 report from the Association for Japanese Animation. Demand further accelerated during the pandemic. The Department of Justice review of the deal, which it extended last week, could take 6 months or longer. At the end of it, the department will either approve the merger or sue to block it. If it ends up suing Sony and AT&T over the deal, that could signal the agency is taking an aggressive stance toward entertainment deals under the Biden administration, potentially setting a bar for how much content in any one genre companies are permitted to control. The probe also puts AT&T in regulatory crosshairs again. Under the Trump administration, the DOJ fought a more than 2-year, ultimately unsuccessful battle to prevent AT&T's acquisition of Time Warner on the grounds that AT&T would increase prices for Time Warner programming such as HBO. We talked about that in regards to Cartoon Network, that Ian Jones-Cordy came out and said that he believed that OKKO was canceled because of everything being tied up with this, and he thought that part of the reason that the deal was tied up was because Donald Trump hated CNN. Donald Trump does hate CNN, but I think there were a lot of other factors, not the least of which being that Cartoon Network's viewership has dropped off a cliff, So this is going to be really interesting to see what happens. I mean, we said before that if Sony and Funimation get control of Crunchyroll, that at least here in the West, it was pretty much, that was it. They were hands down the biggest player. But again, there are other options and there are other options popping up. And I think a lot of people in a lot of studios are going to take those other options. Because again, I would not be comfortable running all my stuff through a competitor. It doesn't make a lot of sense, and a lot of people aren't happy with decisions made at both Crunchyroll and Funimation these days, so they probably will find another way. I really do think the time is right for more Japanese studios to just come up with their own English language streaming services and just cut out the middleman altogether. Just a personal opinion. Gonna wrap it up. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, and we'll talk later.